Let's Get To presents Go Go Astros, a focus on H-Town hardball.
So we are back here on Go Go Astros to break down games 2 and 3. I don't think much has to be broken down. By the way, Brian Arbor's away on assignment, so Andy and I will be doing this thing solo. Andy, good morning.
I mean, broke down is the best description I've heard of the last 24 hours.
Yeah, and it's funny because I believe everyone on our show picked the Astros in 4 or 5. I had them in 4. Did you have them in 4?
I had them in 4, and I think Arbor had them in 5.
In 5, which meant losing games happens. And the Astros haven't swept anybody all year. But I want to go into a little bit about how they lost. And I'm using this as a therapy session to step me off a ledge.
Sure. How they lost is, and I think you said it best, throughout his playoff history, and I will qualify what I'm about to say, Dusty Baker is very likely a Hall of Fame manager when he decides to hang it up. I think he has the wins. I think he has the division championships. Throughout his very, very long managerial career to justify that without any other, that full stop, that's a statement. He's a Hall of Fame manager.
Yeah.
But his history has been making a really weird decision and then catastrophic things happening after that.
So let's talk about the really weird. Let me set it up for everyone. Luis Garcia, who didn't look great. I think we talked about it during the first inning. It looked like the moment was maybe too big for him, which is fine. He should have been pitching in Double-A this year. He managed to get out with 1 run. Second inning, he was, I think, clean and effective. Maybe he gave up a base hit. Third inning, gave up the home run. You're still up 2, right? Gives up 2 consecutive singles and then goes to 2-0. And then what happens?
And then Dusty pops out of the dugout. So he's already given up 2 strikes. Dusty pops out of the dugout and replaces them with Yimi Garcia, who, by the way, was not the pitcher who had been warming up. That was Christian Javier, who was warming up earlier. Yimi got pulled in, I think, within he was supposedly ready to go within 5 pitches. So there was a rush.
Update. He wasn't.
There was a rush to get Yimi Garcia on the field for whatever reason, facing a batter with a 2-0 count in his favor. The reason that the Astros have started to float around is Luis Garcia's OPS against for left-handed hitters is like 400 points higher than his OPS against right-handed hitters. But that didn't change from facing the batter for the first time to 2-0. So he made this decision. It's like he got the decision, had to process it for a couple pitches. Oh, yeah, that's bad. So let me do something else. Not that Yimi was a great choice. I don't know that we had a better choice at that point. But
that's an unfair position to put a reliever in, which is why it doesn't happen unless it's an injury. That's the only time you ever see that.
Yeah, and ideally you would want to have your relievers come in with clean innings, know who they're going to be facing in an inning, all that stuff. And that's not always possible. But when you just lump in, okay, by the way, we're going to spot him 2 balls. And I hope that you, Yimi, who has trouble throwing strikes, is also going to be able to get this guy out. It's just mind-boggling. Now, it certainly didn't help that Tom Hallion maybe had one of the worst nights I've ever seen a home plate umpire have as far as calling balls and strikes. And even before all this, Hallion had a couple of moments where he actually called strikes before the pitches were caught, which is almost impossible to do, but he was doing it and doing it demonstratively.
Well, here's the thing. There was a tweet that went out about 12 hours before the game started that said that he ranks in the bottom 3 percentile of accuracy for this season. So that's another conversation we can have, is why is the MLB not vetting who's umpiring games?
I don't know.
He's worse than Angel Hernandez. That's how bad he is.
Yeah, he made me long for the days of Eric Gregg, to bring a name back from the past. Joe West would have been a better, because at least those guys, well, Angel Hernandez not, but at least Joe West is bad but consistent.
Yeah.
Eric Gregg is bad, but you know what you're going to get. This guy was all over the place.
Yeah.
And not that that excuses giving up 12 runs, but it certainly explains why a team that was hitting in Houston all of a sudden, and was hitting up until the 5th inning, all of a sudden couldn't get hits anymore because the strike zone was literally all over the place. And that didn't help our pitchers either.
Yeah, I mean, before the Grandal's home run, strike 3 was called ball 3.
Strike 3 happened. We were out of that inning with the next ground ball, and instead, everything went to crap. So, the Astros have to perform better. Certainly, they wilted under the spotlight. I think there's a lot of pressure on them to close out a sweep for whatever reason. Nobody's going to sweep in a division series this year, so we're not unique in that. No hope is lost. I still think we have to win. We went into Sunday's game having to win one of the last 3. We still have to win one of the last 3. We're going to do that. I'm not.
Yeah. Let me go back to the real quick, though. I want to go back to the Yimi Garcia home run that he gave up. The thing that I think I found the most perplexing was his numbers against, like, his OPS. He went against the OPS splits when he came in, right?
Yep.
Had they just walked, I forgot who it was that was up. Yimi got a ground ball, the next batter, which is who he's a right-handed specialist. He should have just been facing a right-hander. I would have appreciated, hey, 2 outs, we're going to walk the bases loaded and bring in a clean arm and know that you have a force everywhere. And it's like, you can pitch from the windup, all that stuff. It just belies any kind of logic from the most analytical team in baseball.
Well, and that's, you can't be analytical and then go with your guts and fly in the face of everything you've done up to a point in a season. Bullpen guys, and I think Dusty has never gotten this, and I am not placing the loss on Dusty's doorstep. There's a whole bunch of crap that went wrong last night, but this decision was mind-boggling in its execution, and it belies the fact that the Astros do use an analytics to make almost every decision. And when he goes against that and throws Yimi Garcia, why do you have Brooks Raley on the roster if not to face a left-handed hitter in a pressure situation?
Yeah, that would have been the time to see Brooks Raley.
That might be the only time we needed him this entire division series. But no, we got Yimi Garcia instead. And, it's going to be something obtuse like, well, he's got our best chance of a swing and miss. Well, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And it just went from there. Now, we stopped hitting. Whole lot of things happened.
And we're gonna break down.
An interference that wasn't an interference, and I mean just stuff.
So yeah,
but that's where it all started going to crap.
And the next inning happens, and look, that to me was just proof that baseball is a frustrating sport, because that could have very easily been 3 straight ground balls if our guys were positioned. And I'm not saying they were positioned badly. I'm not anti-shift guy, but seriously, the base hit past Correa was a diving base hit. The base hit past Altuve was actually, I think, hit where his normal spot would have been.
Yep.
So I'm not going to get too upset about it.
He was playing more up the middle for, and I don't think defensive positioning was the issue. The White Sox just happened to hit balls where our players weren't. And that's part of baseball.
Yeah, it's that third element. You play the other team and you play the game of baseball itself. And so, but I want to talk about the Grandal thing, not so much on did it turn the game, but how weird it is. And this is where you get to play therapist for a second. So look, I believe that he knew exactly what he was doing. The video shows him throw his shoulder into, but I also understand the letter of the rule is clearly intentional. Right. So technically speaking, the right call was probably made. Why do I have the feeling that this feels like this could be this series version of the Bartman play?
I don't think it's that well. That things like the Bartman play are unforeseen, uncontrollable circumstances. You can't account for who I think was an accountant, but probably an auditor of some sort, Steve Bartman, sticking his hands out, interfering with a pop fly or a pop foul that should have been caught. And that led to a whole series chain of events. I don't think that's this. I think Grandal absolutely is a smart player, knew what he could get away with.
Yeah.
Knew that he was going to have to put the onus on the umpires with where he was running on the grass, because the rule is there's no lane until you establish a lane. He didn't really establish a lane, so there's no violation there. it's kind of like throwing a jump ball, hoping to get a pass interference at the end of a football game. You're going to put the onus on the umpires, the referees, to make the right call. And, half the time they're not going to. He threw his shoulder into it. It did absolutely lead to a series of bad things happening. But I don't know that carries over as much as it felt like for all the world, the Astros were battling a strike zone with Hallion, like we talked about. Once they got down by 3 runs, it was kind of in a survival mode. They, can't manage a strike zone because the strike zone is ever changing and amorphous. And at some point, I think mentally you just pack it in for the next night, knowing that you don't have to win tonight.
Yeah.
The White Sox had to win last night, and they have to win again today.
Let's talk about the White Sox last night. They threw every. I'm actually surprised. I guess it shouldn't be, but surprised that they did pitch Hendricks last night, and it seems like from that perspective, we didn't really use any of our leverage guys. We used Stanek, but I think Stanek could go again tonight. I think that's why he was like, look, we're going to put Rayleigh in and punt this thing so we don't carry Stanek one more inning and then let him run out. So it does feel like, it's your Urquidy lives in the strike zone, so that's fine. And obviously they do have Rodon throwing tonight, but I can't believe he's 100%. So it does feel like, all things being equal, right now the Astros should have as good a shot as any to win tonight.
Yeah, if one of the advantages we identified was starting pitching for the White Sox, we've shown that starting pitching is not a real big concern of ours for them. We destroy Lance Lynn, which we did. We got Cease out of the game before 2 innings was up. I think he made it an inning and 2/3. Giolito, who is their big ace, we beat him, got him out, I think, within 4 innings. I kind of expect similar from Rodon. Rodon's their best pitcher when he's healthy, and I think there's not a lot of argument about that. But he hadn't been healthy, and there's something going on with his shoulder. I don't wish the guy injury, but it's kind of just the fact of the matter of this is where we are in the season, that everybody's dealing with something, right? The question is, when Rodon exits the game, assuming it kind of goes like most people think it's going to go, and that includes the White Sox, by the way.
5 innings at the most.
Yeah, who do you go to then? Because Kopech's pretty much burnt. I know they're going to put him in again, but how effective is he going to be on the second night?
Especially when he wasn't that effective going into his third inning.
Stellar against. I know he ended up getting the win, but it's not like he was unblemished and didn't give up runs last night. So where do the White Sox go? I think that's, certainly they have an advantage if they go into the 9th inning with a lead. But prior to that, it is a wide open ball game. And I think this is one of those games where it is the Astros have every opportunity in the world to put it away tonight.
Okay. Now here the X factor becomes if the game starts and then stops and then starts again because of the weather. Right now there is weather coming in. Hopefully they'll look at the forecast and just push the start time, but it doesn't leave a lot of options for the Astros. If you get Urquidy started, you could probably cool him off and then start him up again once, but if it's an on and off thing, but I guess that the White Sox are going to be dealing with that exact same problem with Rodon. So I guess it's
with a worse situation with Rodon, because he's going to be able to get his shoulder warm once, and then there's no coming back for Rodon. I based on what I think his injury is, which is probably rotator cuff labrum type thing, and he's going to warm up once. He's going to go as long as he can, but he's not going to be able to sit for 30 minutes, an hour, if there's a delay of that length, and then come back and pitch effectively, and certainly not without risking injury.
How many times could Urquidy do that?
Having said all that, more than Rodon. Urquidy doesn't have a shoulder injury to deal with right now, and that's all that I'm basing that on. It's not ideal for anybody, but you're going to see a 8 to 10, 10 to 12 game if we have multiple rain delays and a bullpen game from both sides. And I think a bullpen game ultimately favors the White Sox in the later innings, but I haven't seen anything from the White Sox bullpen, the 5th through 9th inning last night notwithstanding, that makes me think we can't score runs off them.
I will give credit to this too. I thought the blackout thing was cool. I thought it was an electric I mean, it definitely worked, I thought, in the White Sox favor as far as creating that that environment for a team that's sort of like the Baylor Bears of uniforms, because it's like every uniform is completely different. I thought that really, they really worked. I want to talk a little bit about.
It's also a day game now, and that's a different energy versus a night game where you've had all day to pregame and get pumped up for this game.
Come on, people on the South Side don't have jobs. They'll be
well,
there.
I know they're going to have their same level of degenerates. The ones that don't work for Barstool anyway will be at the game.
Yeah, we're gonna get into Barstool in a second. I want to get into Ryan Tepera, who all I can guess. And look, here's the thing, Andy. You are a graduate of Texas A&M University, which is probably the third best academic institution in the state. It's a top whatever. I think the third best.
Depends on the discipline, but let's go with that.
Right. U.S. Newsroom. Look, okay, I don't want to get into this, but U.S. News and World Report always Texas is always ranked higher than A&M, and Rice is better than both of us. Top three in a big state's not a big. It's an excellent university. You know that I love you. You know I think that highly of A&M's academics.
You do. Moving on.
Sam Houston State, probably not the best school.
Right.
You know, they have tried to hire me as a film professor twice, which maybe is an indication of that already. But Ryan Tepera, who is a former Bearcat, decided to open his mouth and say, you know, the reason the Astros lost last night is because they were not at home, because we know they do shady stuff at home. First of all, just when you first read the comments, what were your immediate reaction?
I rolled my eyes like I have been for the last 12 months about this topic. My biggest issue is not that he ran off his mouth. My biggest issue is that the alert I got on my phone probably about 20 minutes before we went to air here is ESPN on my notifications. Are Astros stealing signs? ? No explanation, no further data, just click this link and see what. And that's what this is all about from the media standpoint. Is that what drives me crazy? Ryan Tepera has the mental capacity of a couch. I'm not worried about his suppositions. Just like if I was the Red Sox right now, I wouldn't be worried about what the Rays are saying or not saying about what they're doing in the stadium. If we are that much in Ryan Tepera's head about something that happened in 2017, and I'll give you the benefit of the doubt to happen part of 2018 too, we're still talking 4 and 3 seasons removed.
Right.
There are 5 players on the 40-man roster who were in the organization, or at least in the major leagues, from that 2017 team. And to think we somehow are able to get away with a cheating scandal, and elaborate's the wrong word because it wasn't elaborate, it was pretty freaking simple. But they were able to do that with the MLB observers that live in every dugout in every game throughout the country all season long, and especially in the playoffs when they only have 4 games to watch. It's just asinine. And
especially against the one team that they're going to look. The last team that's going to be able to get away with that right now is the Houston Astros. They are the
right. It's stupid, and it was unnecessary because they won the game. And
by the way, Tepera pitched well in Minute Maid Park as well. Like it took him 5 pitches to get out of the 6th inning that he had in the second game too. Like, it's not like they got to their starters, which is what they did, and that was
again, we didn't hit poorly in later innings last night because of any lack of ability to cheat or lack of ability to steal signs, which is not cheating, but that's a whole separate conversation. We struggled to hit because the White Sox have some good pitching talent, and Tom Hallion turned in the worst performance of a major league umpire at home plate in the playoffs so far. And that's saying something because major league umpires are pretty bad.
Yeah. I mean, there was the remark about all the strikeouts. And the fact is that those strikeouts, how many of them were ball 2 or ball 3, and they were called? It wasn't like they were he tried to allude that all 16 strikeouts were swing and misses. And categorically no. Let's talk about the Tepera thing. From how does it affect, first of all, the Astros? Do you think that does bulletin board material count in baseball? I don't feel like it does, but
I don't believe in the bulletin board material. I know fans want to, and I know the movie producer in you wants to stick a believe sign up on the wall and make it mean something. and you should, because
Oh, when they all put their hands on the believe sign, dude.
So great.
Yeah.
It was so great. But I think the reality is these are professional athletes who are paid a lot of money to hit a baseball or to throw a baseball or to catch a baseball. They are not worried about what Ryan Tepera has to say. Having said that, should he appear in the game again tonight, will they have a little bit extra juice to get a hit off of him? Absolutely. That personal motivation, I think, is a lot more than wanting to win the game, is a lot more than wanting to show up Ryan Tepera. The Astros are about winning the series, and whatever that looks like, I can tell you to a man, they are not worried, they are not perplexed, they are not concerned about anything that happened last night, and they have absolutely 100% turned the page, and any one of them would tell you that, and they'd be 100% serious because they have won on the largest stage. They have advanced to the American League Championship Series the last 5 years. This is not new territory for them. In 2017, for instance, went up 2-0, went to Boston, lost a game, and then 1-4.
Yeah.
Swept in Cleveland the next year, 1-5 against the Rays in 19. So we've played this game. We're going to play it again today, and my opinion is we're going to come out on top of it.
How about the White Sox locker room? Do you think that there's some degree of like, what are you doing, dude? Like, why are you being a distraction?
I mean this with all due respect, but the White Sox to me seem very dysfunctional. They are everything a boomer thinks about when they think about what's wrong with the youth in baseball, blah, blah, blah. They're loud. They talk too much. They seem to all be really angry. Like Tim Anderson is a really angry player. I don't know what he's mad about, and maybe he has reasons to be mad, but that kind of just feeds into their lineup. And I'm sure the Chicago fans from the South Side love them, and they're all lovable. From the outside looking in, they just seem like an angry, kind of dysfunctional team who happen to be really good at hitting. And I don't know that La Russa has tried or places a lot of value on, or even can at this point, be the leader for that franchise, or be the leader in that clubhouse that pulls them all in the same direction. Matter of fact, they seem to be bucking him at most turns. Now, La Russa absolutely made good moves last night. But I think the White Sox generally win in spite of him and not because of him. And I think because of that, these little things, La Russa doesn't want them talking about. La Russa wants to be the guy talking about the other team stealing signs, but he doesn't want his team talking about it to the press necessarily. I think there are leaders on that team like Jose Abreu who would rather Ryan Tepera keep his mouth shut until after the series when you have something to talk about.
Especially when you're a middle leading reliever. Like you're not even our eighth or ninth guy. And
again, hats off to Ryan Tepera. He had a great game last night. Good job, White Sox. You won the game. I don't think you win the series.
All right. I want to talk a little bit about, I know this is a random topic, but it's really, it's one of the things that we pride ourselves when we created Let's Get To, and we've carried it over to this, is that, we're intelligent guys. We try to take a reasonable approach to talking about baseball. Brian does as much research as anybody when it comes to this stuff. We are the anti Barstool Sports. And I bring up Barstool because of White Sox Dave, the one who threatened to bring his army after Houston fans. I don't even know what that means. I guess if they're all hanging out at the gas and sip, to quote Jon Cusak from Say Anything. So him and Jon Cusak get into it last night because he challenged Cusak, saying he wasn't really a White Sox fan, despite the fact that he was there having played Buck Weaver. And apparently Cusak pissed him off because he challenged him with some White Sox trivia that White Sox Dave failed. And now there's a big Twitter beef. Just talk to me just in a few minutes, like, what's wrong with Barstool? Like, why is Barstool the thing that I think is symbolic to the downfall of where we are as a country and discourse and all that stuff?
Ultimately what it is a bunch of 30-year-old white men, primarily, who want to pretend that they're 21-year-old white men and say outrageous shit for reaction. That there's no substance to anything they do. There's no value to anything they do. It's just all about how do we get clicks and how do we monetize it. And ultimately that's pretty gross, right? So would I love for us to be making money and I could do this independently? Fantastic. Yes, that would be a super choice for me. Am I going to sell whatever little bit of integrity I have left at this point in my life to do that? Am I going to dye my hair and pretend that I'm some sort of badass like this David Williams, who is White Sox Dave, who graduated 13 years ago from something called North Central College in Illinois, who wants to portray like he's 24 years old and is really like 33. And this is where his life is being an affiliate of Dave Portnoy, who is probably closer to 50 than he is to 40, and is just a giant douche. And he hires giant douches to perpetrate this brand. And the brand is nothing of substance. They have no content other than gotcha shit, like challenging Jon Cusak to his fandom. A, who cares who Jon Cusak shows up to a baseball game for? B, who's given Jon Cusak a thought since Con Air? Was that
well, hold on. Wasn't High Fidelity and Gross Point Blank post Con Air?
High Fidelity was not. Or excuse me, what were the two?
Gross Point and
Gross Point, I think, was after, but no, High Fidelity was before.
Okay.
But either way, okay, I'll give you Gross Point Blank. Excellent movie. Not a lot of people saw it, but it's not like you're talking about, I'm going to go challenge Ryan Reynolds to a fight, somebody at the height of their popularity.
You're right.
You're talking about a guy who is a native Chicagoan. I guess that's what they are, Chicagostonian. I don't know. To, why are you here? Because you went to a Cubs game once and you wore Cubs hats. Who cares? And if you're going to do that and it goes so badly, why would you post that? Because nothing about it. And then he walks away, Dave Williams walks away from it, talking about how Jon Cusak's going to be banned. From what?
Yeah.
He doesn't want to do your stupid podcast. He doesn't want to be on your web show. What did you ban him from?
That's almost as silly as the Astro guy we both know and love, who creates his wall of shame. Okay. And
I mean, what does that mean? And it's just stupid. And I'll tell you this, for David Williams, he's lucky that Cusak is actually a pretty nice guy, Twitter rant notwithstanding, because it's gotten a little bit weird on Twitter, because I think Cusak went and had a few, old styles at the ballpark and then decided to let his feelings out. And evidently he and Patricia Arquette are having a back and forth about Dave Williams, which is probably making Dave Williams' life right now. I have value.
Yeah.
Jon Cusak and Patricia Arquette are talking about me. You don't mess with Jon Cusak physically. Danny Trejo, who has been in prison, the one guy he's ever filmed with that he's afraid to get in a fight with is Jon Cusak, because Jon Cusak learned kickboxing to film Say Anything. And Danny Trejo's exact quote on this is, "You don't screw with him because if he can break your ribs. I've seen him hit a bag. You're lucky he's a really nice guy, because he would absolutely destroy you." And Dave Williams, I think, is like 5'9", probably about my height. Looks kind of doughy.
Very doughy.
Cusak is not that.
Yeah, I just get a a group. To me, Barstool reminds me just a group of frat boys who actually failed out of college and don't really care. They're like the logical extension of Bluto and Animal House, right? Like they just never quite moved on.
I assume most of them still drive the same cars that they had in high school, and probably still wear their leather jackets, and not in an ironic sense of the word, just because they still think it's the coolest thing they've ever done. But when your life peaked in high school, it's a pretty sad trip downwards. And I think that's where most of them are. They've just lucked into a zeitgeist in our country where people don't give a shit about the quality of the content. They care about how it makes them feel.
And at a macro level, this is how we get fake stories about elections being stolen. I mean, that's I think what bugs me the most is it's baseball, so it doesn't matter, or it's sports because it doesn't matter. And of course, now they're getting a platform with the betting thing, which will be a topic for later. But it's how you get at a macro level kind of where we are right now.
Oh, sure. And it's not exactly like this point of pride. Good for them for making money and doing what they need to do to support their families and enjoy their lives. But it's not like he started Barstool Sports. Portnoy at least has that and has the business savvy to monetize this tomfoolery, this jackassness, whatever you want to call it, into something that people want to listen to or watch. This is a guy who's an affiliate, which basically means he won the contest for being the biggest jackass in his region. Okay, great. You're now the king jackass of Chicago. Houston has one, Dallas has one, Los Angeles has one, University of Texas has one, A&M has one. It's just repeat of bullshit nonstop until you think it's what reality is. The reality is most people want to go to a baseball game if it's at a visiting park or at the home park, enjoy themselves, root for their team, and go home.
Yeah.
They don't need somebody questioning their fandom because you saw them at a Cubs game, probably paid for by a sponsor for a movie or Fox 10 years ago.
Yeah, I remember, you know, and you and I are not the we're not the biggest fans of John Boy, but I think we can agree that there's a definite difference between what John Boy has built in Barstool. And I remember him there. I guess he had gone to a Met game with a friend, and they threw him a jersey, and he put it on, and then he got roasted by Yankee fans for. And it's like, guys, can we just anybody who questions my Astros fandom, whether or not I put on a random hat of another team, that's all silly and stupid, and we're wasting our time.
And that, I think that's the biggest description of Barstool Sports is we're wasting our time.
We're wasting our time. All right. So I know we're on Team Cusak. As we wrap up, then overall over under, how concerned are you about the Astros moving on to the ALCS?
Again, I'm not. I think they win today. I had said Astros in 4 anyway, so they were going to lose. Don't like the way they lost, but there were a lot of mitigating factors. Biggest of which is the Astros just didn't play well last night. I don't anticipate they're going to play that poorly for game 4. And if they don't play that poorly and we don't have Tom Hellion behind the plate, which we don't, things will be better. I think things line up pretty favorably for us, though. And, you know, worst case, we lose today and we go back home where evidently we have a whole cheating system and we can.
Well, we go home and we'll go home with, I think, you know, they're going to have to max that bullpen out again today if you're Chicago. Yeah. And I know that there's a day off and everything, but I still will take a healthy rested Lance over a healthy rested Lance Lynn.
Well, and the Chicago should wear out their bullpen today because they are absolutely they're in a win or go home situation, and that's what they should do. That's why you want to have the home field advantage. That's why it's good to be up 2-1. The Astros have everything in their favor but the result last night. And I don't believe that momentum carries from game to game in baseball like it does in some other sports. The Astros have a superior lineup. I think the pitching matchup favors us a little bit today. Not a lot, but a little bit. And I think the overall just gameplay is going to be better coming out of the Houston dugout today than it was last night.
And I do think we have an advantage at manager, even if yesterday wasn't Dusty's best game. He managed well Monday, the games 1 and game 2, and hopefully that comes back. We'll be back tomorrow to hopefully be talking about what the ALCS looks like, and hopefully we won't know who we're playing tomorrow because hopefully Tampa wins tonight and that thing goes 5.
No, I'm rooting for every game to go 13 in that series. 13 innings. Just burn up all your bullpens. I don't care who. It doesn't really matter at this point.
Limp on in. All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Sounds good. Have a good one.